I have no sympathy for the woke leftists and the Harvard students who are now facing career ruin for having supported Hamas in the latest conflict. Why? Because it is these sycophants and cowards that brought us into the moral crisis we are facing today in the United States. At least a dozen more CEOs endorse Bill Ackman's vow not to hire Harvard students who blamed Israel for Hamas terror attack, as undergrads double down on their statement and whine about being flooded with racist hate speech. If you were someone who for your life, forever, for a long period of time, advocated for the right of others to speak and express their ideas, even if they were abhorrent, then I believe you will should have your free speech defended. And to a great degree, and not absolute, but you should be allowed to keep your job and get a job just, regardless of your opinions, so long as those opinions don't directly impact the line of work you're in. Right? What I'm saying is, if you work in public relations and you're tweeting these things like supporting Hamas, like maybe you're going to get fired because your job is public relations. But if you're like a porn star like Mia Khalifa, maybe you shouldn't get fired because you have nasty opinions. But here's the point. A bunch of Harvard students signed onto this letter, student organizations, that was basically defending Hamas, essentially. And now you've got high-profile Wall Street CEOs and other billionaires saying, these people will never be hired by us. Good. You have two factions on the left. You on the left action, you have two kinds of people. One, the people who overtly and explicitly defend this because they want it and they want violence, they want destruction, they want to burn it all down. And then you have the people who know it's wrong but are cowards. Cowards who said, I'm going to sit here and keep my head down and it'll all pass me by. And now it's all coming home to roost on you. The banality of evil who supported evil people. Now, I don't like cancel culture. I don't want war between the United States and Iran or any other countries. And, typically, I'm not a fan of people saying you're going to be fired because of your political opinions. But here's my point. These are the people who thought they could support evil ideologies and that we would just let it all happen. No. It's the banality of evil. These Harvard students are now begging, oh, we're so sorry. We didn't mean to support Hamas. Here's my point. As the far left engages in critical race theory, the sterilization of children, and abortion to the point of birth, and all of these things that we consider to be atrocious, there are many people on the left, knowing it's wrong, will just go along with whatever they think the establishment narrative is so they can stay safe and keep their heads down. And we've begged. I've said one day they'll come knocking on your door, even if you keep your head down. That day is now. These students at Harvard who signed onto this support statement thought that Black Lives Matter was the way to go. Well, Black Lives Matter has all the support from the institutions, from the big banks. You speak out against BLM, they could take your bank account away. And that's what your cowardice has resulted in. I find it fascinating. These individuals are now reeling and terrified because they thought they could march in lockstep with evil and everything would be fine for them. No. Eventually, you pay the price. And this is where we are now. The Daily Mail says over a dozen business executives are joining the call to blacklist the Harvard students who put out a statement that blamed Israel for the Hamas attack. Well, the group wind up being persecuted in the aftermath. They're your rules. The far left made these rules and demanded we be subjugated by them. And now it has turned around and is hitting them in the face. I won't defend them. Sorry. If you believe in free speech, then I will defend your free speech. If you have actively fought to suppress the rights of Americans to have their free speech, why would I defend you? People have long said, we must defend all free speech, even for those who don't like it. Yeah, up until the point they're actively trying to strip me of my rights, right? That's the point. You're in a conflict, and these people are telling you that you can't target civilians. You can't. No. Oh, no. And then they explicitly state their intention to target civilians. The left will mercilessly beat a child and then scream bloody murder if you strike back in defense. They will ignite riots. They will ignite violence. And then if you try to defend yourself, they'll lock you up for it. These criminals will be released by Democrat policy. And then if you try and protect your business as the victim, they will put you in jail. That's the point. Enough. No more can we defend these evil people. But there's an interesting moral and philosophical debate. Everyone says you have to defend the free speech of everyone. No, you don't. There could be an evil, abhorrent person I really despise, and they're saying a whole bunch of far left crazy nonsense about communism, and they love it, and they love Hamas. But this person has consistently and always defended the rights of everyone to free speech. And I say, okay, I reject your statements. I think you're wrong, but you have afforded me my right to challenge you and speak up as well. Well, then I've got no beef as to this person's free speech. The protesters in NYC who are speaking out, I'm glad they're doing it. The far leftists, because they're showing themselves for who they really are. Take a look at this tweet. Lawrence H. Summers says, I yield to no one in my revulsion at the statement apparently made on behalf of 30 plus Harvard student groups. But please, everybody take a deep breath. Many in these groups never saw the statement before it went out. In some case, those approving did not understand exactly what they were approving. Probably some were naive and foolish. This is not a time when it's constructive to vilify individuals, and I'm sorry that it's happening. No. I reject this outright. Chris Rufo says, just delusional. In some cases, those approving did not understand what they were approving. These are Harvard students who signed a statement that said in plain language, the apartheid regime is the only one to blame. Summers' brain is entangled in ideology. It's very difficult for Summers to believe that the people and the culture that he has nurtured for years support the mass butchering of women and children. The denial is strong. But at some point, he will run out of excuses and see the truth. They were like this all along. I'll put it this way. It may be that they made a mistake, but when you march in lockstep with Nazis, I mean literal World War II Nazis, not the stupid leftist Nazis, you're complicit in these crimes. It is a fact that there were many low-level Nazi soldiers who did not know the full extent to what the Nazi Party and Hitler had in store and were doing. Does that exonerate them of their crimes? It does not. Just doing your job is not an excuse. Harvard students who signed on to something, blaming Israel for what happened to these babies, to these children, sorry, I'm not going to defend you. I won't. Now, I certainly still believe in their right to free speech, and I'm glad they spoke up. I'm glad. But let them reap what they have sown. This is what they've chosen. Now, it's a bit extreme. Look at this one. Doxing truck drives around Harvard showing names, photos of students who blamed Israel for Hamas attacks. What we don't want authoritarianism. We don't want people to lose their jobs because of their political opinions, right? But right now, it is the people who have built this system who are suffering its consequences. And perhaps this can be a lesson to the extremists. If you build a system of extremity, you will suffer its consequences. And you know what? I don't know what to tell you. We can't just sit here and be these, what is it? People talk about wartime conservatives and peacetime conservatives. We are no longer peacetime liberals, libertarians, classic liberals, whatever you want to call it. Too long, there have been far leftists who have sought to strip us of our right to keep and bear arms and to speech. And yes, I know the far left likes guns. They just don't want you to have them. So I'm not going to support the individuals who tried destroying us. That being said, if you're a far leftist who has maintained free speech, I respect it. Jacobin magazine, for which I am a subscriber, is a far left socialist, magazine. And they've routinely defended the right of free speech for everyone. And for that, I will defend their right to free speech absolutely to criticize Israel and even blame them. I think it's gross. I reject their arguments. I think they're wrong, but I'm glad they're expressing them. And so long as they defend my free speech, I want them to have theirs protected as well. If someone tried to fire a Harvard student for speaking up and that person believed in free speech, I'd defend them. I'd say, let them have their political opinion. That being said, the idea of cancel culture to me is more so the unjust and out of context taking of people's statements. Someone said something 10 years ago, so they're fired. Now that's stupid. Somebody said something and it was misinterpreted, so they're fired. That's stupid. But look, man, let's say you're hanging out with a group of your friends and then one of your buddies, like you're hanging out at a bar, and then one of your buddies stands up and starts screaming racial slurs. You're going to be like, get away from us, dude. We don't want to be around you, right? Even if they were a good friend of yours, you'd be like, dude, stop, man. I'm not going to hang out with you if you're doing this. I have no problem in that regard. If companies are like, we're not hiring people who say these things, it's bad for business. The issue with the far left is that they created a fake reality of what was acceptable and what wasn't. And people were marching in lockstep, despite the fact that what was being said wasn't even particularly controversial. There are moral lines. It is not so simple as to just say it is all principle. Sometimes it is morals. You can say right now that you oppose intervention in Ukraine, but you support intervention in Israel because they're different things. I say, for the most part, I'm anti-intervention, which typically includes Ukraine and Israel. But I understand sometimes war happens. I'm not so naive. You can't be absolutist. But there are some people who say no to Ukraine and yes to Israel. Why? Well, they view Ukraine, it's not a NATO nation. It's not an ally. It's not someone we've invested money in. And they say Israel is. I can respect and understand complex arguments, right? My point is this, man. I want to live in a world of a principled utopia, but recognize that these people stood behind evil to destroy your life, and they're now reaping what they have sown, and I'm not going to pull them from it. Sorry. It's what you get. It's the rules you wanted. Congratulations. We'll be over here and we'll set up different rules. I'll leave it there. Excuse me. Next segment's coming up at 6 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.